What's going on, guys? Today we are going to talk about a fragrance from the House of Mind Games that I had no clue about at first, but I'm glad I wind up picking this up from a third-party resource that kind of just threw it in a sample set for me. And so, as usual, I gotta see if it's scent bubble approved or not. And I know a lot of you guys are still real hype on Mind Games fragrances. So let's see if this one is one you should put your nose on and really break this down to see if it should be in your collection. Strap up. All right, welcome to the Scent Bubble. I am your host for the evening. Let me just make sure the camera is all good. There we go. Apologize about that, guys. Today from the House of Mind Games, we have Ruy Lopez, Davana Plum. Don't know much about this fragrance. Let's see if there's any writing on it. Ruy Lopez, I don't know who he is, captivates a distinctive, enthralling fragrance designed for inquisitive visionaries, harmoniously blending black tea and exotic spices with tantalizing undertones of succulent. Oh, I don't want to say all the name or all the notes. This perfume exudes an air of inscrutable sophistication, celestial whispers of blah, 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 weaving together in an olfactory tapestry. Ruy Lopez paints a picture of dark and mysterious sophistication. And I don't know who is Ruy Lopez. Let's just briefly look that up. I know you guys could care less. He was a professional chess player and writer. I don't know if that particular person is associated with, but because Mind Games fragrances look like chess pieces, I'm going to assume this was inspired by him. Yes, so let's get some initial impressions on the fragrance and cut all the small talk. And they have the cheap sample decants. I'm not a fan of that. Really got to load them up, and we will. And man, it's fruity. Rooty, Tooty, fresh and fruity. Very rosy, very fruity. But let's just talk the juice for a second. The juice is spectacular. Not in terms of creativity or anything like that, but in terms of blend and quality, it's all there. And I would expect nothing less from Mind Games fragrances, but sometimes, we never want to assume everything niche is quality because we've made that mistake many times. I think this is a unisex fragrance that leans feminine, but for men, it would kind of just put some soft edges on you. It's kind of the same way you would approach like Oud Satin Mood or Atomic Rose or anything like that. Off skin, on my skin, and really this is going to come down to what this does on your skin, I get a very rosy experience. It's almost like a powdery, not even powdery, but like a dense, silky, soft, but pungent kind of rose and fruity experience. Feels similar to Jadoub from this same house, but Jadoub has a more of a specifically fruit, tart, sour, sweet fruit experience. I forget what the standout note is from that fragrance, but it has a very kind of like mango passion fruit kind of feel, if I remember correctly. This is very much rosy, woody. There's also like some underlying like spices to it. Doesn't feel holiday spice, doesn't feel green spicy. There's just some sort of lively spice going on in the background. Rosiness, spiciness, the texture is very velvety. It does have a freshness though. So whereas in Oud Satin Mood, for instance, it wears quite heavy and creamy and powdery and all that, this wears kind of a similar weight, but with a top heavy freshness. It really dies out on the test strip quite quickly for a niche fragrance of this caliber, but on skin, it really sticks. It's more of a projection fragrance, not necessarily a sillage. I think you'll definitely have some sillage, 3 feet or less, in the first hour, but it feels like it dries down to a little bit more than a glorified skin scent. Again, I think about a 3 feet projection on this. And yeah, it just feels rose dominant with some earthy, dense spice and woods under it. It really doesn't feel that complex, though it does feel rich, if that makes sense. Like it's a dense, full smell, but I don't smell a lot of different things in it. It's kind of just a singular blend. Let's go ahead and switch screens real quick, see what we're working with. Fragrance got a 3.8 out of 5. I do think that's appropriate, but there is only a sample size of 173 votes. So take that with a grain of salt. Launched in 2023. This chick is very well known in the fragrance game, so has a very seasoned perfumer who put this together. Cherry. Okay, so that's the fruit feel that I was smelling with the rose. It does have this cherry wrapped in rose petals feel. Black pepper, black tea, rum, Davana, rose. I think the black tea and Davana and pepper really give that fresh lift on it. And then obviously in the base notes, we have leather, oak, and patchouli. Just kind of the signature, sexy, intimate notes in perfumery. You get the sophistication from the leather. The rich woods kind of gives it serious backbone. The patchouli is kind of like the sexy plant. You know, it's got this rich, seductive, earthy quality to it. And so it just makes sense that it would dry into that, which I'm actually glad it dries into that, because then the cherry tones down, the rum tones down, the rose tones down, and everything can sit in more of the elegant space and not be too, you know, out there. And the dry down really is a nice skin scent. Not saying it becomes a skin scent, but just saying like as a scent that would be left on your skin, you know, as this sits on your skin over time, it will become a skin scent. And so the skin scent that it dries down to, being leather, oak, and patchouli, is going to be really nice. You know, if you fell asleep in this fragrance and woke up, you'd really like it. It kind of imitates the black opium, kind of Bulgari Man in Black type of feel, the Straight to Heaven by Killian feel, just that kind of dark woods, velvety patchouli type of stuff. I'm in for it. And as a rose fragrance, it's good to see a leather patchouli spin. But even the top notes with kind of this rum and cherry, almost Guerlain's low medial extreme type of feel to the fragrance. That's kind of like a champagne cherry. This is a dark liquor cherry, but it pops very bright, you know, like the Guerlain. I think this is a really well-made fragrance. Let's see if they say it smells like anything. Rose 31. I do get that a bit. Cherry smoke. The Latafa, his confession. Anyways. Okay, yeah. So let's go to some usual suspects and wrap up here. I think it's a feminine leaning, but unisex proper fragrance. I don't think it's perfectly unisex. I think the rose is very much womanly in this. Again, that's all subject to debate, but you guys trust my nose, and that's all I can give you is my opinion. I think it is fall winter leaning heavily, but because it's more of a fresher fall winter take on this style, I feel like heavy elements would destroy it. I would still want to be indoors in cold weather. I think it's nighttime. It's intimacy. So anything intimacy, from family occasions to date occasions to being with loved ones or trying to make a cozy, comforting, elegant impression, ballroom, stuff like that. This would be really nice in colder weather. I think spring, summer, if you wear it, it has to be nightlife, anything after 4 p.m., and there has to be a breeze. If there's not a breeze, you'll wear quite heavy and dense, and I think that would be somewhat inappropriate. Again, feminine leaning. Age range on this, it is very sophisticated. You know, once you start dealing with leather and patchouli and rum and things like that, and even the earthy elements of the Davana and whatnot, I do think that it pushes a fragrance like this north of 25. I honestly think it's a north of 30 type of fragrance, but an ambitious woman who's got her crap together, you know, could rock this 25 and up. I think 25 and down, it's just not, even if you liked it, you wouldn't have a lot of occasions for it. But yeah, it's very nice. It's got a bit of gothicness to it. It's got a bit of aged womanness to it. You know, the mysteriousness, the intoxicatingness, the allure. It's got all that stuff going. The blend is very smooth. I think for rose lovers, you got to get your nose on it. I definitely don't think this is blind buy worthy because it has such a distinct character of rose on it that if you're really not blown away by it, you just not only will not spend the money on it, but you just will prefer other rose scents over this. Like to me, I prefer Oud Satin Mood. I prefer Oud Silk Mood. I prefer Atomic Rose. I prefer, there's a lot of rose fragrances. I'm just a little bit dead-minded today, but there are a lot of roses I prefer over this, but it is a quality rose, and that rum leather kind of feel is what separates this in the marketplace. Think of By Kilian Straight to Heaven, but instead of kind of the chocolate patchouli feel, this is the aged womanly rose take on that style of DNA. It's interesting because this almost feels, if you close your eyes and reimagine this fragrance, I imagine like, you know, all of us have come across families or even have a mother like this, but that mother who's just, she can't be stopped, meaning she's in her own head. She controls situations, you know, I don't want to say like narcissistic or anything like that, but just very much of herself, and nobody messes with her because she's just been putting it down forever. Her mind's made up with herself, you know, that kind of woman that you want to always be on her good side. You know, it's got that kind of energy to it where you could just imagine her wearing that type of scent. You know, it's like the grandmother in Wednesday, you know, the TV show Wednesday, the Addams Family new kind of spinoff, the mother's mother. So the grandmother, I imagine this being her scent. Now, as I say that, maybe that turns a couple of age brackets off. Maybe it turns the men off. Maybe it turns some younger women off. I don't mean this is an old woman smell, but it could very much be that. But it does have an agedness to it, a maturity to it. If a younger woman rocked this, she would be very unapologetically, I'm my own chick. I do what I want. You know, this would just be a side of her. You know what I'm saying? Decent scent. I feel like on the quality and creativity scale, I have to give it at least a 8. For people that really like this, it would be like a 9 or a 10 fragrance. But for me, in terms of what's in the marketplace, the complexity, the uniqueness, the type of notes they chose to do, I think it sits well above average. It's a very strong 8. And I feel like at that score point, you would really have to just get your nose on it. You'll either love it or won't care for it at all. Like it just won't be that special enough for you. Alternatives to this, By Kilian Straight to Heaven, more of a chocolatey take on this. Like a black opium type of scent. Oud Satin Mood, Atomic Rose. Those would all be variations. Now, not alternatives like they smell like this, but they evoke the same energy as this fragrance in terms of tone and scent profile and all that. But all of those are variations of the rose DNA, but they're all intimate roses that fall in the same category that I would recommend. There's a clone fragrance that I would put your nose to. It's not a clone of this at all, but I think there's a lot of clones about to hit the marketplace for Mind Games fragrances, but the only clone that even kind of remotely puts me exactly in this line would be Club de Nuit Intense Woman. The black and gold bottle, I believe, that is a clone of Noir de Noir from Tom Ford, which this also kind of runs in the realm of. So that would get you pretty close to this by about 80%. It'll definitely achieve the same vibe check. Oud Satin from Ministry of Oud is another clone that kind of is a rose fragrance in this category, but I think that goes a different direction, but it still gives you the same vibe check. But Club de Nuit Intense Man is going to be the closest rose profile to this scent to me in the clone game. But, you know, in 2026, we might see a lot more fragrances come out that are going after this Ruy Lopez. Pretty good scent, guys. The price point on this, I think, is quite ridiculous. Let's check here. Joma is selling it for, it retails for $400. The discounters are putting it somewhere between $220 and $253. You might be able to get it a little bit cheaper than that, but $253 seems to be the closest or the lowest price point I'm seeing across the board. So man, it's got to really blow you away to spend that type of coin on this, but I do think it's a solid fragrance. And for those who love this profile, you would wear it a lot, especially if you're on the East Coast or something like that. But yeah, 8 out of 10, solid 8. I don't do decimals, and I kind of let you know why I arrived at that 8 score. Again, this is Mind Games' Ruy Lopez. Again, like, comment, and subscribe. More importantly, turn on that notification bell. Talk to me. I do talk back. What fragrances from the House of Mind Games do you guys feel are bottle worthy or decant worthy that you would actually purchase? They bring a lot of quality and good amounts of complexity to the game while still offering kind of a mass appeal approach to the complex, mature style of perfumery. They're somewhere between like a complexity of like Xerjoff and Amouage. You know, they kind of sit in that category. Closer to Xerjoff to me, because I think Xerjoff, just despite being very complex and mature scents, they often are mass appealing, or as mass appealing as one could get. Like they have a lot of offerings that just have a lot of star power that have become mass appeal staples. Herba Pura, Herba Gold, 40 Knots, you know, Naxos, all that stuff. So this would kind of sit in that caliber of perfumery. Thank you guys so much for rocking with me. Hope you guys stay blessed. I'm going to throw 2 videos up that you might be interested in based off what you've been searching for. And if you're new to the channel, we cover everything in perfumery, from cheap to expensive, beginner to expert, and all things in between, with a lot of entertainment. I am just on my own fragrance journey, giving you guys a view into it, and I'm documenting it for your benefit so that your journey can be just as good as mine, and you can cut some corners along the way. So thank you guys so much. This is SB signing out. Stay blessed and peace.